just you get to choose. Right? Like here's the scenario. The environment gives us something which can be perceived as negative, can be perceived as not working, can be perceived as problematic. The world's ending. So we get to choose to see it like that, or we get to choose to see it as an opportunity.
So clearly that it's my responsibility now to do that for other people. If I have information and other people's success is my success, and vice versa.
Because you know what, like the challenges or the roadblocks are the journey themselves.
There's no big things. It's all little things compounding on top of each other. Trinity Furtick is an entrepreneur with over 10 years of experience in marketing, management, compliance, and client relations. She helps entrepreneurs create systems, establish brand identity, and implement strategies that increase their earning potential. As founder and CEO of Lunar Heights, formerly New Heights Strategies, she provides creative direction and digital media support for influencers, artists, and nonprofits across the country, as well as business strategy support to international clients in e-commerce. In addition to her experience in quality assurance, client relations, and digital media strategy, Trinity studied communications at Howard University and holds a BA in communication studies from UNC Charlotte. When she is not running her business, Trinity can be found volunteering in her hometown of Durham, North Carolina, for causes focused on social justice and communities that have been historically marginalized. How does Trinity connect with other business owners to combine their sweet spots and offer something bigger to potential clients? Who does Trinity have the most fun working with? And what is the biggest systems-based mistake that business owners make today? Listen to the wise words of Trinity Furtick on this week's episode of Truth Seekers. All right, welcome everybody to another episode of Truth Seekers. Joining Coach Nick and myself is Trinity. And before we introduce her today, Trinity and I have had some very in-depth conversations about the deeper discussions of work and developing boundaries. I think that's so important in today's discussion with burnout and trying to take on too much and do so many things. There's so much expected of us. So before we jump into all that, we'd like to introduce Trinity and welcome her to the show.
Hello, everyone. My name is Trinity Furtick, and I am very happy to be here. My business is New Heights Strategies, and I offer marketing as well as coaching and PR to small businesses and creatives.
What would you say is the biggest thing you're focused on right now with your company's growth, or like what's Q4 is ahead of us here. We're in October. There's some seasonalities with businesses. So what are you most focused on for the rest of the year here?
So for me, things have changed a lot over the course of the time that I've been in business. It started out with me doing just like social media management and more like content creation. And then I realized the things that people were asking me for were much more than that. They wanted strategies. They wanted advice on what to do when they're new to business. A lot of people who were working full time, but they wanted to start their business on the side and, legitimize it. Like, what are the steps to do that? So as I realized, and then I also realized, I don't know if I really enjoy, just creating the content. I feel like there's more that I could be doing. So I help people with PR, as well as like sponsorship outreach for influencers, making sure that they can actually, get paid to do what they love. So for me, a lot of things have changed. And so I'm just looking at this time as, especially with other businesses, it's, the holidays are coming up. So I feel like it's a great time for people to really put their business out there, but also make sure you have everything in a row, because the last thing you want to do is have, not be prepared with your offerings or not have your items in stock when people are ready to shop and support small businesses. So many people have started businesses during this pandemic, and people are aware and want to support small businesses. So you just want to be prepared to actually do that. So that's kind of what I've been helping people do, especially in the e-commerce industry.
Well, I like the way you put that, to be prepared. To me, the way I make sense of that is just getting out ahead of the messaging that we want to share with people. What value do we provide? And how can we tap into that? How can we, draw the right people to our businesses? I think, like you said, Coach Nick and I agree. We've seen a lot of people make a switch during this pandemic of like self-sufficiency and developing their own business. And I think there's a certain point that people realize, that they have some success, and then it's like, oh my gosh, I can do this. I'm doing very well with this. What's the bigger version of that? How can I get out in front of it? How can I really tap into and magnify my skills? And you said something, sponsorships for influencers. I'm curious about that. Like, what does that process look like for you, and how do you attempt to match those people up? Where does that come in?
So a lot of people have, YouTube channels that they've started, or they started TikToks, or, and everyone has so many different things that they're offering. You have people who may do just mukbangs where they eat in front of the camera and do a story time, or you have people that may get on there and they do lookbooks and fashion. You have people who do styling and makeup. So at a certain point, once you have a certain following, or you even have just a very specific and loyal following, you want to be able to get paid for your content. So, when you're first starting out, a lot of companies will offer to send you free products in exchange for content. And, that's kind of how you get your start. But, once you start getting to those numbers, you're building trust with your audience is building up, then that's when you need to start negotiating. You need to have things in place so that, like a media kit, where you can negotiate your offerings for sponsorship with a company. And that is what I've helped people do, whether it's with the email support and outreach, or actually helping them get their analytics together for a media kit. Because when you're creating, you already have enough to worry about. You're thinking about your content, you're thinking about how you're going to edit your video, the music, it's a lot that goes into that. So being your own admin person and sponsorship on top of that. I was working with a lady before, and she was missing out on some opportunities, because it's like, by the time she gets to check her email after, filming video after video, there's an opportunity that's already, passed by. So I think that it's, knowing when it's time to scale up and get some support is a great thing, because everyone is not. I think the first thing people do when you have a business or you're creative and you're on your own is you're like, oh, let me go out and get a virtual assistant. But that may not be the best fit unless they have a certain skill set that you need. So if that virtual assistant has worked with influencers or whatever before, that could be a good fit. But if not, it may be in your best bet to say, okay, maybe I need someone who can help me specifically with sponsorship and outreach. So.
Yeah, I'd like to get Coach's thoughts on this, because we make sense of this by using the term relator, doer, thinker. And you think of the example of like a local bank or a credit union. The relator part is being in the community, shaking hands, kissing babies, making the relationships. And then the doer, the actual action part of that, is the innovation, the value you're providing for people, the action you're taking. And so the version of that with like the products that the bank has, or how are they servicing the community. And at a certain point, when the demand gets very large, it's the thinker, the process, to slow down and put some things into place to be able to scale the business upwards. So that's what resonated in my mind with people who have some success with these views. Then it's like, all right, well, how do we tap into that? Coach, what do you think about that?
Yeah, thank you for sharing all those specifics as well, Trinity, because I think there's so many alarms, so many bells went off in my mind. It's like, oh, okay, cool, I like bulbs. Thinking about all those different areas. I'd love it if you would share what you see as the biggest mistake when it comes to scaling in those areas that you help people with. But before you answer that, just to answer Coach's question there, I think it's so powerful to realize that when you're building a business, there's other people that already have businesses and skills in different areas that, like, you probably could go and figure it out yourself, but you probably shouldn't go figure it out yourself. You should probably go have someone that has an experience in that particular area and leverage that, create that. Coach, to your point, go over to the thinker, but create the leverage around the delegation to someone in your team, or the outsourcing, or bringing another company in. So yeah, I love that. It's making my thoughts go around on that. But I'd love to hear that. Like, what do you see as the biggest mistake, if you mind sharing? Do you see something a lot where you're like, okay, I can see what you're doing there. That doesn't make sense. Let's do this.
I think it's just a lack of support and then a lack of systems. Like when you don't have a system in place, and I'm speaking from experience as well, it's you just make things a lot harder. And now we have so many tools that you can use that can help you with your process, even to automate it. And a lot of them are free or a small cost. So I think sometimes we have to measure the opportunity cost of trying to DIY everything. Like, how much time is that going to take away? If it's something small and I'm like, oh, I know I can do it to myself. Okay. But if it's going to extend that time or make you miss out on an opportunity, to me, I don't know if it's worth it, because you could miss out on something when you could go ahead and hire that person who works specifically with this thing. And you say, hey, this is what I want to do. I'm looking to get this sponsorship, or I'm looking to get this contract, or to work with this team. How can you help me so that I can be prepared by this time next year when this festival or this event or this comes up? I want to be on their radar. So it's just about being intentional. So when you have systems in place and you have the support that you need, then you can, like, your goals seem so much more reachable. Like,
Love what you said about opportunity cost. I think that's such a big thing that people don't consider. Like, I could do it. It would take me this long. It's like, well, if that took you a week to do that, like, what could you have done that you didn't do in that week that only you could do?
exactly.
That's the scary part, because I think of it like this: like, if I spend a week doing something that I shouldn't be doing, then I get it wrong, or I don't get the result I want, and I've got to unwind that week. The week is gone. Like, I've invested that time. So you've lost that week, but I've also lost the week I could have put in something that I can do. So really, if you're doing something you shouldn't do and it takes you a week, you really lost 2 weeks, and that's scary.
Exactly. Especially when you're a small business or a solopreneur where you're doing everything you have to measure the cost of, like, how much time am I spending on this? Could I, even if you're not able to hire someone full time, is this something that I can contract out for a month or so that I can really focus on my craft, which is actually creating, or, artistry, whatever it may be.
Coach and I talk a lot about books on this podcast, because we do a lot of reading, and I think the purpose of people who write the books is to basically condense the information that they learn through experience, to share with the world or other people. Now, you dangled the carrot a little bit, said that you through experience learn these things. I won't necessarily ask what experience that was, although we'd be open to hearing that. But I'm wondering how you're leveraging systems today with your business. What have you systematized that's caused you to, like, put that on cruise control or delegate that to something else, and then allowed you to spend more time in your sweet spots?
Yes. So I feel like, specifically as a service provider, someone who's not necessarily selling an actual physical product, it is so important to have some type of project management system, or, some type of scheduling something. And so for me, and I actually have a lot of the free tools that I use on my website where people can go and see, like, they're categorized. Like, what can I use for free to design things? What can I use for free to schedule things or project management? So for me, what I actually use is a system called Honeybook, and it's just helped me so much because you have everything in one place. It connects to your calendar. You can schedule things. You can create workflows, so automated email systems. So when a person goes through your process, okay, first they're getting this welcome email once they sign the proposal. Then they're getting this email. Then they're going to get this link. So once you get your system down, you really know your business, which it can take time. It took me at least a year before I really knew, okay, I need this, or even to know what to put in the workflow. So, just be patient with yourself. But something like that, it saves me so much time, because now I can go in and just switch out the specific link or the template, or I can say, oh, I already have a template for this. Let me send this to this person. Or, a lot of times people ask, well, can you send me, some of your work, or can you send me, examples of what you're able to do, or, a spreadsheet or a brochure? And I don't have to spend a lot of time putting that together because, a lot people are, some people are reaching out because they're genuinely interested, and some people just want to hear what you have to say. They may not be ready to pay for the service yet. So I don't, as a service provider, time is money. So I don't want to spend a lot of time, preparing a whole thing, and then they might not be interested. So it's easier to have those things ready to go. Especially when you're getting those same questions over and over, you can pay attention to those questions and create a process. So when you send your welcome email, maybe you have a quick FAQ after it. Okay, these are the hours, these are my business hours. These are my best practices. This is how you can reach me, so that, people know, okay, this is how things are going to go. They can get a sense of who you are, and it just gives a more professional tone too. Like when people see that you're using, systems in your business, they take you more seriously.
Yeah, it's like Trinity's already been experiencing this. Look at this. Like as soon as I sign up, I get this. I feel welcome. She's already addressed this problem. Like that. It makes so much sense to me. And then kind of like the book analogy with business, right? You do something for 10 years, all of a sudden you have all these little things automated throughout that process that, and using your words, you've just identified the patterns of things that continually come up or questions that come up. That's what FAQ is, right? Frequently asked questions, things that keep coming up. And you can just like address that in one email without, and think of having to answer that question over and over and over again. It's just boom, it's right there. And you don't even have to do it. It's already automated. I love that so much.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I wanted to diverge a little bit. So of the relator, doer, thinker, we've talked a lot about the thinker and process procedure. What about actions or people? Like where does that come in for you in your work? And what is maybe the biggest opportunity for whatever the rest of this year or even 2022 for you in those two dimensions, people and action?
For me, it's really been connecting with other business owners and seeing how we can combine our offerings to get and leverage bigger opportunities. Because I'm just one person, but if I can team up with someone else that, okay, I offer this in the marketing space and you offer this, how can we come together and be intentional about the type of contracts or the type of businesses that we would like to work with, so that we can really maximize our time? At first, I'm a person, I do like to work, by myself. But when you find someone that you can actually work well with, you have that symbiotic relationship and it just kind of balances out, then you can find that you'll get better opportunities because you're combining your network. So I think that's the main thing that I'm looking at for this last quarter as well as next quarter, is just building with some other people in my network and seeing how we can combine some things. Because like, for example, me, I don't do websites, but I know some people who do. How can we combine a package that supports people? Because I know a lot of people are going to come to me and they're always ask, hey, what can I do to make my website better? What can I install for my e-commerce, store that's going to give me this effect? Okay, I can team up with this person and we can create something that works for the client. So I think just being willing to work together and, not being greedy, and then you can actually get better and bigger opportunities. So that's really my main thing as far as the people part and just leveraging the network.
It seems like such a smart approach to stay in your lane. Maybe might be like, just do what you do best, find other people who can fill in, and then better together, right? If you can, what rings true for me is ideal client profile. Coach and I have been working on this ourselves within our own business, right? Just what does the type of person look like who needs your services? Work backwards, and like all these answers come through, all these secrets of people who, when you're having these exploratory conversations with them, like their trigger points, like, oh my gosh, I can help with that. Or even in your situation, I know somebody else who I partner with that, like, let's have that conversation, let's bring that person in. So just working smarter, not harder, like a leverage versus effort, phrase comes into mind for me.
Exactly.
Coach, that's exactly what I was thinking. Ideal client, who is that? And I wonder, I wonder, Trinity, like, who do you have the most fun working with?
That's so hard to say. I really enjoy, I do enjoy working a lot with influencers as well as artists. So music artists, like for PR and stuff, just because I feel like when they do take that leap to work with me and I'm on their team, whether it's for only 3 months, 6 months, a year, I feel like I'm able to see like how much more they're able to focus on their craft. And it's cool just getting to see the music or the creativity that's out there and offer support to them, because when they're actually able to focus on that, you can see the growth, because now they have more time to record in the studio. Now they get to focus on, that bigger brand or that bigger offering versus, just trying to do everything on their own, being a what do they say, jack of all trades but master of none. So I just love that, getting to work with creatives. That's something that I do love doing, as well as actually like coming up with copy for like the websites or for captions and things. Those are the things I really enjoy. So
we can see you light up when you answer that question, so that's
right.
And Coach, I'm glad you asked that question, because I'm sitting here, as we start to wrap up and grab some takeaways. We framed the beginning of this conversation with like mental health, and I'm like, well, we haven't really been talking about that, which is okay. But then like that's the maybe the flip side of like mental health. You think of like protecting yourself against something or overcoming something, and well, that might be part of the conversation. Coach's question was like, what do you love to do? That's part of mental health. Like, do more of what you love, because then you'll live in that zone of loving what you do all the time. You're monetizing it, and it becomes natural to you. That's what a sweet spot is. Like you're living in that zone, if you will, to where it just feels like a flow to you, and people flock to that. Like they can sense that when they're exploring that in their business. So that's my takeaway. How about you, Coach Nick? What are you taking away from today's conversation?
Yeah, that. And if I add on to it, maybe I'll add on to it, and that because it's important to go towards what you want to go towards. And if you're working, especially if we're talking about newish businesses, people that are starting, getting going, and what they should think about strategy wise. But more than that, mindset, mental health is, are you doing the things that you want to be doing and working in your sweet spots, as you said, Coach? Because if you're moving towards something you want, then you are going to be in a good place. Doesn't mean it's not going to be challenging, but you're going to be in a good place. It's when you stop and create a vacuum, create a gap, like that gets filled with something. And if you're not intentional, you said that word a couple of times, Trinity. If you're not intentional with what you fill that with, it will be filled with stuff that doesn't support you to be the best. And so it's focus on what you want the most. What are you going towards? What are you creating in your business or in your life? And by doing that, you'll ultimately get good results. But more than that, you're going to be fulfilled.
Love that. Yeah, thanks for that frame, Coach, because that's what it's all about. We want to not only do good and contribute, but we also want to feel good about what we're doing. And when we're constantly growing in the business and living in our sweet spots, we can't help that. It just comes naturally.
Could awesome. I add one thing really quickly?
Yeah. You're the final one here, so bring us home, Trinity, please.
So when we spoke about, like, when you asked me the biggest mistake that people made, and I said, not having systems, I think that for service providers, it is important to have systems in place, because it does help you set your boundaries in a way that's comfortable for you, especially if you're a person like myself. When I started out, I was a lot more introverted, and I didn't like having conversations about certain things, like, why is this person texting me at 12:30 in the morning about a business question? But, when you have those systems in place, you always have that to refer back to, because now you have a proposal. Now you have an email that says, your business hours. So it doesn't come off as you being rude. You can just say, hey, please, refer to your proposal that I sent over for best practices. It kind of gives a buffer of, those interactions. So I think that is a big reason why it's important to have your systems in place, because you can always have kind of like that rule book to refer back to.
It's so great because a lot of people, or some people, have very negative or low bias, as we like to call it, with systems, because systems create this perception that, lack of freedom, or we got to follow the rules. But yeah, I see Coach cringe. It's the opposite, right? If they're used the right way, we actually create more creative time and space for ourselves and sleep time. Heaven forbid a text comes in at 12:30. So
Exactly.
absolutely. Well, awesome stuff today. Trinity, thank you for joining Truth Seekers. We really appreciated today's conversation.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Thank you for watching another episode of Truth Seekers. We appreciate your interaction, so please comment, like, subscribe to YouTube, Apple Podcasts, or Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you want more, check out some of our links to our masterclass, The Achiever's Mindset, and come join our LinkedIn group. And what do you want to see more of? Remember, we're here to share the simple secrets of successful. So help us do that. What do you want to see? What do you want to see more of? Thanks, and see you again next time.